Watch clouds, trees and birds. They carry messages. Accidentally dropped words do too. Pay attention. Ignore nothing. These are the words from my manifesto that I read to you in my previous episode. I'm reminding you about these words because I'll share a story about how accidentally dropped words made a difference. So pay attention to what you hear and what you say. Welcome to She Became CEO, the podcast for women transforming body, mindset, relationships and money. I'm your host Ilse B, and here we speak boldly, heal deeply, and lead lives we're proud of. This is about becoming the CEO of your voice, your business, and your life on your terms. Let's begin. After I published my previous episode, I received a pitch from a man who wanted to be a guest on this podcast. At a glance, his message seemed polished and his story dramatic. Trauma, transformation, and redemption. And yet, something in me said no. Today I want to tell you why. And in doing so, I want to make it more clear what this podcast is and is becoming about, and who it is for. This man, I'll call him Steve, is an attachment style coach. In his first letter to me, he said, "Your podcast always draws me in with its honest celebration of leadership through adversity. So I thought my story might be a meaningful fit for your audience." Those are flattering words, aren't they? But was he true, or was it indeed just a flatter? Always draws me in. How many episodes has he heard to say always? If he did listen to many and liked them, why didn't he give me a 5-star rating and review the podcast before he pitched? He used words honest celebration of leadership through adversity. They sound to me as if generated by an AI to be used in numerous letters, as there were no specific references to any moment of my podcast that made him say so. Yet I understood that I might have been triggered based on my past experiences of lies, so I didn't want to dismiss him right away. I did some research. I found his website and read his My Story page where he says, "The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have to yourself. From there, all of your other relationships will be defined. When we heal the wounds that are destroying us from within, all of the other relationships in our lives will also heal. Taking action is the only thing that creates real change. It starts with changing your mind, but it works by changing your actions. No matter how bad your situation is or what has happened in the past, you can overcome these things, and when you do that, anything is possible." I like that. I also believe that taking action is the only thing that creates real change, and I also believe that anything is possible. So I got curious, but he failed to deliver the story on the website. And then I noticed a YouTube icon on the bottom of the page and clicked on it. I'll tell his story closely to how it's shared on the video. Before, I'll share with you why I declined his collaboration offer. Steve was born in 1969, the same year as I. His parents were young and his father struggled with addiction. They divorced shortly after Steve's birth, leaving his mother to raise 2 sons alone. His early years were marked by instability, frequent moves, and exposure to chaotic environments, including witnessing a violent episode involving his father acting against his mother. Steve recognizes his parents were doing the best they could, given their own unresolved traumas, while understanding these early patterns became embedded in his subconscious, shaping how he approached every adult relationship. Remembering the early stage of his present marriage, Steve recalls,
So my wife and I met in 2016. She's a beautiful woman who is about 15 years younger than me. Yeah, I know, I got very lucky. Now, after 3 years, we had a beautiful baby boy in December of 2019.
His wife already had a daughter from a previous marriage, and once their son was born, tensions around parenting began to surface. Steve reflects.
Now, a few months after my son was born, we began to have, some differences on how to parent. That began to cause more problems, along with occasional excessive drinking, as you can imagine. That can be problematic sometimes. Now, other than that, we really had no major issues, and we both truly loved each other. There was no cheating, no lying, no major money issues, as we both worked really hard. My wife is a hardworking woman, probably one of the hardest I've ever seen.
As conflicts increased, his wife suggested he needed therapy. Steve agreed, under the condition that she also starts therapy for herself. They set a deal.
So as we both began to heal, we also both began to have emotions that were at times uncontrollable. Our emotions would continue to clash over the next 4 months. It was insane, and the emotional pain on both sides was extreme. I won't get into the details now, but after 4 months of emotional turmoil, our experience would culminate with my wife putting a restraining order against me. Yeah, it got that crazy.
Steve had to leave the family home, and the emotional toll was immense. During this time, he discovered integrated attachment theory. The insights were so profound that he enrolled in the certification program to become a coach himself. Gradually, things began to shift.
Now, at first, I wasn't open to being friendly, but over the next month or so, I realized she had her own battles, and no matter what, I really just wanted her to be happy. I was okay if she didn't want to be with me anymore, and I just wanted what was best for my son.
The restraining order was lifted on October 17, 2024. According to Steve, they decided to try again, with new tools and deeper understanding. Steve emphasizes that love alone isn't enough. Skills are necessary: clear communication, boundary setting, and replacing unhealthy behaviors.
It's not about learning how to stay together. It's about learning how to truly love ourselves and love each other the way that both of us need to truly be loved.
A restraining order is devastating and traumatizing indeed. I was falsely accused of trying to harm my husband, and it hurt like hell. There was never a restraining order against me, but his cruel and unfair actions against me left deep wounds and scars. After that, I can't imagine resuming a relationship with him, not because I cannot forgive, but because I would never trust again. I have been working with a therapist weekly, and she suggests that we focus on my trust issues next. But Steve resumed his relationship. So I wrote back and thanked him for reaching out and expressing his interest in being a guest in my podcast. I went on and revealed that I had seen his video and that I can empathize with him regarding the restraining order. Then I referred to his initial statement that his story might be a meaningful fit for my audience, and asked to specify what kind of audience he wants to target. He replied saying the following: "My audience is really a broad spectrum, but I mostly focus on people who are in relationship crisis mode. Either they are experiencing relationship turmoil now, are almost broken up, are recently broken up, or have had a lot of relationship struggles throughout their adult lives. They can be young or old, it really doesn't matter." And I realized then he didn't feel right for this space. Not because he was flawed, but because my audience is specific. He didn't feel right because I know his accidentally dropped words won't sit right with my audience. In his video, Steve said he's a lucky man having a wife 15 years younger. Now maybe I'm being sensitive, but I felt it. That subtle implication that his luck had something to do with having a younger wife. That his story, while compelling, was a comeback story being told as a badge of pride, a masculine arc of redemption. You may say I'm judgmental, but I'll say a woman has intuition, and the right to pick what feels safe and aligned, and reject what doesn't, without justifying. Sometimes, oftentimes, there's just that feminine intuition. The world isn't a safe place for women, so let's not ignore red flags. I'm open to starting to invite guests, but I don't want any guest, be it expert or a celebrity. They need to feel right for this space. I've been pitched before. Recently, there was a pitch recommending a gut health expert as a guest. This is how the letter started. There's something magnetic about the way Il Zebra's Transformations uncovers real strategies for living well. Your conversations invite guests to share what it truly means to transform, both inside and out. Every episode feels like an honest invitation for listeners to question how they approach their own health and happiness. Once again, it sounds like a well-written letter. However, the sentence, your conversations invite guests to share what it truly means to transform, tells me the writer hadn't listened to my podcast. So far, I have never had any guests. It was a choice. While podcasting under the name Il Zebra's Transformations, my intention was to imitate journaling. So far, it has been a solo podcast. Apparently, the person who approached me just looked at the episode titles and descriptions without actually listening to my content. This podcast is about transformations. It started with me sharing about my transformations. Now it has transformed to speak to women like Ellen, Marta, and Nicole, so they can step into their power. Ellen is in her early 60s and works as an analyst in a large, reputable company. In fact, she used to be a team manager, but she asked to be moved down the ladder and given an analyst's position so she had less responsibility at work. It's because her mother has dementia, and she's the only one who can take care of her. Her father passed away a few years ago, and Ellen has no siblings. She's exhausted, and sometimes she wonders how she's still holding it all together. Working from home, her office hours get extended, and she has little time for anything else aside from her job and her mother. She doesn't complain or say no to any extra work assignments, worrying that she could be replaced by someone younger. If that were to happen, she thinks she would have a hard time finding another job. That would be a disaster because she isn't in a position to retire, and since her being single, she has nobody to support her. She has secretly entertained an idea about creating an online business where she would be the boss over her time and what she does. After all, she has a lot of experience to pass to younger folks, but she needs to understand how business stuff works so she can delegate most of the tasks. As an analyst, she needs to be able to mentally see the business structure to believe she could do it. She wouldn't have the time or interest to do everything on her own, and she wants to keep her job for security and to finance her startup. Moreover, she needs to get over the anxiety of the thought that she would have to market herself on the internet. Marta is a first-generation immigrant who moved from southern Mexico to the U.S. to be with her family. Her daughter Evelyn married a U.S. citizen, and they have 3 kids. Marta is sociable and has a lot of energy. Back in her country, she had a large circle of friends who were frequent guests at her home. They cooked, ate, shared stories, snagged, and danced together. In southern Mexican culture, family is at the heart of everything. Celebrations, whether big or small, are not just social gatherings but expressions of love, tradition, and togetherness. These events are rich with meaning and sensory experience. Food plays a central role. Music and dancing are also essential. Customs like breaking piñatas and building altars to honor ancestors connect each celebration to cultural roots. And no matter the occasion, the atmosphere is warm and welcoming. She also had a well-paid job there in which she felt appreciated. Yet Marta gave up all that because She couldn't bear the thought of being far away from her grandchildren. After moving to the US, she couldn't find a job. So she became dependent on her daughter and her husband. When trying to integrate, she encountered language difficulties, and she also noticed people in the US treated each other differently. She thinks Americans are reserved, even cold. So she feels somewhat excluded and focuses on her grandchildren. Yet she knows that soon they will grow up and lose interest in playing with their abuela. Therefore, Marta wants to create a legacy to leave behind. It would represent her stories and their culture. She even secretly dreams she could sell copies of her creation and become famous, which would make her daughter and grandkids proud of her. With those thoughts in mind, Marta has started to improve her English so she can promote herself online to the American English-speaking audience. And here's Nicole's story. Now, at the age of 52, Nicole knows that a woman who hasn't gone through menopause would not understand her, who is dealing with it. Something has profoundly changed. Her dropping estrogen levels made her stop phoning, and she could no longer tolerate her husband's abuse. Well, it feels like abuse to her anyway, even though he's not been physically violent. But the little things he said to her daily made her question her sanity. It's been a lot for her to carry. After their daughter Allison died young from a rare childhood cancer, Nicole fell in deep depression. When she felt like she had started recovering, she noticed that there was another energy between her and her husband. Nicole didn't say anything. He was the breadwinner. She had to tolerate it until her daughter Ashley from Nicole's previous relationship graduated. When it happened, Nicole filed for a divorce. It's all been very stressful. He didn't make the divorce go smoothly, and she had worries about Ashley and her job. Nicole is a waitress, and talking about her boss, in Nicole's opinion, he needs to update his people skills. But she knows he's not going to change. She thinks that if she were a boss, she would create a work environment where people are respected and appreciated. Nicole is a talented pottery artist, and her dream would be to earn money through creating beauty and bringing people together. She's tried selling her products at fairs and on her Facebook page, but the income wasn't sustainable. She has an idea about offering pottery classes. Nicole inherited a house from her late mother, and in the house there's a large workshop in the basement with plenty of room. But she has that damn brain fog. Nicole needs someone to help to figure this out, and she wants to figure it out. Now, if I asked you, my listener, what's common between these three women that I just described, you'd probably say something like this. They are all women in their 50s and beyond. They all have dreams of starting something of their own, but they also have reservations. They're all consciously or unconsciously looking for a solution to their specific problems. But there's something else that might not be so evident unless you know how to look. What I see is trauma. The telltale signs of trauma are not always immediately evident. If someone we know as an extrovert suddenly won't leave the house, we would not ask what's wrong. However, often signs are subtle. For example, a person is a little less interactive, a little bit different, less outgoing, takes less care of themselves, or has become just a little more snappy or impatient. People on the other side of trauma are not unlike people after stroke who need to relearn many fundamental skills anew. You still have the memory of them, and they have the memory of themselves before, but the present truth is different, even if the shell, their body, seems to be the same. I have spent years, yes years, learning about trauma, so I know that there are several types of trauma. One is what we traditionally think of, which is what people may experience after a sudden event, such as a natural calamity which takes lives, or a violent act against you or a loved one. This type is called acute trauma. Brain expert Dr. Paul Conti says trauma causes changes in the brain that can be seen in brain scans. Those changes in the brain characteristic to trauma happen in other ways too. For instance, if a person experiences being seen as less than others over time, for example, a person who is not appreciated at work, or an immigrant who lives among locals instead of a larger community of other immigrants of the same ethnicity, this is called a chronic trauma, in which case, as an outsider, you might not even notice anything happening all at once, but those changes in the brain of a person would still be observed in a brain scan. The third kind of trauma is vicarious trauma, which happens due to our ability to have an empathic connection with other human beings. If you are very much involved in other people's trauma or are a caretaker like Ellen, you can become traumatized and have the same kind of changes in the brain that look like that of a person who lost family members in a car accident. Trauma affects your energy and self-confidence. Trauma changes the brain, and you may experience it as brain fog or slower thinking. You may feel that you can't remember things so well, but you can recover. It may take baby steps, but it will happen if you have faith and stay consistent. Moreover, due to the drop in estrogen levels which happens in women around the time of menopause, there can be changes in the brain causing cognition and memory problems. That is because estrogen is vital for maintaining healthy brain function. It influences neurotransmitters, supports brain elasticity, and helps neurons function optimally. Many medical professionals are re-evaluating the role of hormone replacement therapy in the context of menopause and are working to dispel the lingering stigma surrounding its use. With specific regard to brain health, there is growing interest in HRT's potential benefits for perimenopausal and menopausal women. Now, why I talk about these matters on my podcast is because Ellen, Marta, and Nicole don't know about these things, and I want them to start becoming aware of them. What they do realize is that they have been in a situation where they felt financially safe, but now they want more than just that. They want to create something of their own, be abundant, leave a legacy, and contribute to causes. Thus, the situation no longer feels right to them, but they feel trapped due to their symptoms. Those symptoms may manifest as absent-mindedness, lower ability to focus than before, poorer sleep and memory, decreasing physical health, lowered self-esteem, and maybe even anxiety and chronic stress. As a result, Ellen may think, I want to break out of this, but I don't know how. I don't know how to find the time and energy. I've joined programs that promise to empower me, but they moved too fast, used jargon that I didn't understand, and made me feel slow and stupid, even though I'm an analyst. I don't think I can do it. Marta may think, sometimes I want to tell my story or promote my work online, but I stop myself. I'm afraid people will mock my English or think I'm not smart enough, so I stay quiet, even when I have something important to say. And Nicole might think, I keep freezing when it's time to take action. I stare at the screen, then find myself cleaning the kitchen or scrolling for hours. It's like my brain hijacks me the moment I try to focus on my dream. I look at other women my age and admire their accomplishments. I don't measure up with them. I'm just a waitress. Yet what I am trying to show to these women is that they are not broken, damned, or destined. They just haven't been heard and understood. The approaches that fit other quote-unquote categories of people are not right for them, because their gut microbiome, brain chemistry, and the entire body have changed due to trauma and hormonal changes entering menopause. And as a result, they may experience mental health conditions, but they don't understand the cause. They need to address it all while they're building new neural pathways, step by step, by learning new things, using the methods and at the pace that's right for them. In addition, these women are dealing with culturally embedded discrimination that affects all seniors, meaning people after 55, but especially women, where they are gradually written off when it comes to their career. I receive a newsletter from Senior Services and I see the events and services offered. There's quilting, crocheting, bring your grandkids with you, or coffee and caregiving. This is all good. However, there's no help for Ellen, Marta, and Nicole who want to start their business in their senior years. Instead, they hear youth and beauty praised and women like Jennifer Lopez criticized for simulating X-rated sex positions with dancers because she is 56. The criticizers disregard that she appears to be in perfect health. One commentator said, "Go home, grandma." See, even though I favor less explicit expressions of sexuality, and I have never been a huge fan of J.Lo, I applaud her for the courage to do something that starts such a controversial conversation like this. Let's not be naive. People don't stop being sexually active at a certain age. They stop being sexually active when they have health issues. Yes, because it's also not a secret you can stay sexually active even you don't have a partner. At this time, though, Ellen, Marta, and Nicole have blocked the idea of having a new relationship. They want to detach from the existing ones, set firmer boundaries because they want to realize their potential professionally. And they know that relationships have drained them. Yet, as they heal and reach financial abundance, they may change their mind, which would be beautiful. If they take good care of their health, I would support them considering dreaming about a very healthy partner, which may mean someone who's much younger. Didn't Coach Steve say anything is possible? I think I may devote an episode to the matter about the age differences between partners, because not only I do have observations and valid points to bring up, but I also have personal experience. Okay, I just gave you some ideas how to think and how I would like my future podcast guests to think, namely, a little more out of the box than normally accepted and looking at situations from different angles. I do plan to have guests, and you don't need to be a trauma or menopause expert to be approved. I'm open to hearing personal and professional stories, but when you pitch, I want you to please keep in mind Ellen, Marta, and Nicole, and think, will I be helping at least one of these women to ease their pain and get closer to solving their problem? As I'm recording this episode, I'm still working on developing my website shebecameceo.com. So if there isn't yet an automated application form on the website when you check, you can reach me via email support@shebecameceo.com to express interest. I'll also put this link in the show notes. Moreover, if you know a woman who would benefit from this podcast, please do share it with her. And please follow and rate my podcast. It helps to increase the circle of listeners more than you may realize. Thanks for listening to She Became CEO. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a woman who is ready to reclaim her voice, her business, or her life. You can subscribe, leave a review, or explore more at shebecameceo.com. And remember, the transformation starts with you. Until the next time, lead boldly and speak your truth.